3 full days have passed since the latest patch came out, so now we can really see what the best performing decks are in Hearthstone right now. So in this video we will show 5 of the best decks, their mulligans, win rates, as well as some general tips, but we're also gonna check out all of the other working archetypes so you guys have a better idea of what you should be playing with, as well as what you're playing against. So if you're serious about Hearthstone, drop a like and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget you can hire me for some Hearthstone coaching. Now let's check out the decks.
You are not prepared!
The first deck on the list is gonna be Hand Buff Paladin, and that's really not a surprise. As soon as we saw what the nerfs were, Hand Buff Paladin was just screaming it's gonna be still remaining at the top, because it was at the top, let's face it. Yeah, not much has changed here. Right now the best performing list is on the faster side. It's not dilly-dallying with none of that excavate nonsense. It's more early game centric. It has a little bit of more early game removal and whatnot, and it also packs a mean punch with things like South Sea deckhands, Leroy, as well as outfit tailors. We also extend the weapon duration with 1 air guitarist. We have the drone deconstructor that gives you an extra 1/1 mech that could high roll to be something like stealth or wind fury for you, and that way you can buff up it massively and then slap it to something like your Muscle-Otron, or just the Drone Deconstructor, or the second one you get. Like, you could be flexible with it. We also have things like Righteous. South Sea is great for some finisher kind of deal. You could also use it to control the board if push comes to shove. Audio Medic is pretty nice, especially in the early turns where you don't really have all that much to be doing anyway. And it does have Rush and Lifesteal if you manage to finale it, so that can be super helpful. It's basically like a second Tagris plushie, but even cheaper for you. And you can buff this out tremendously, so it could heal you for tons. Gold Banners help you with the card draw, Grim Street Outfitter with the buffs obviously. You draw your weapons with the instrument decks. Muscle-Otrons are great, especially when forced, but you don't always play them forced. Sometimes you just dump them on turn 3, as is, because if the matchup is quick, ain't nobody got time for the second +1. Like, spending 2 mana on +1/+1 nothing sounds a little bit bad, because even Grim Street Outfitter is kind of a bad +1/+1, but it also even has a 2/2 body, so definitely be mindful about if you actually have time to be forging this bad boy, because a lot of times you actually don't. Outfit Tailor can be extremely powerful. You could use it for OTKs, you could also use it for tons of healing with the help of the mini Tigris plushie. Like if you turn 4 Tigris plushie, on turn 5 you have a 1 mana Tigris plushie. With this thing attached to it, it's gonna be healing you for lots. We also have plenty of card draw with Astral Serpent, which is an interesting new inclusion in the deck. We haven't really seen this all that much in previous lists, but it does have some sense, I guess. The weapons are still extremely powerful, and don't forget you need to have an active weapon for the South Sea deckhand, so be careful how many times you swing with it. Tigris plushie is a no-brainer, Leroy for OTK, Maggot that draws you tons. There's literally not a single spell in this one, so you don't give anything to the opponent. Toy Captain Terran can be super powerful, and you can be very flexible about how you use this. You could just buff up a big hero power for you like that. You could also use the smaller guy to debuff the opponent and whatnot. It can be super good like that. We have Ziliax in here, and we're actually using the at the start of your turn double this minion's attack, as well as the summonative copy of this, and this only costs 6 mana in total. So it's a very aggressive Ziliax, with which if you actually buff a bunch of it in the early turns, like this can drop as soon as turn 5. So before that, you could have done something like a Grim Street, like Muscle-Otron, like Double Swing with the Painter's Virtue, and this thing is going to be about +4/+4, and it is sitting at 4/6 to begin with, so that would be a double up 8/10, and both of those would be going up to 16/16 a pop, so that can be extremely powerful on its own. So that is a very nice, quick, aggressive Ziliax for you, and we also have a Midas at the end for a little bit of extra buffage. Matchup-wise, here's what the stats show. Flood Pally is not going to be your friend, but it's a lot less popular after the latest nerfs for reasons, like it's still a pretty good deck. And everything else looks pretty green, so climbing definitely shouldn't be an issue for you. Mulligan-wise, here's what it looks like going first. You're going to want to curve out. Magata is also a consideration, but I'd only consider her if I already have a good curve. Won't just straight up hold on to her. Ziliax is also an interesting line, but again, it's something you're going to keep if you have a good supporting hand for it. Tigris plushie could be a consideration when you're against faster matchups, but in general, things like Righteous Protector, Muscle-Otron, the weapon, or the instrument deck, Audio Medic against certain matchups, Gold Banner is usually great. Drone Deconstructor ain't bad, and I'd say Grim Street Outfitter might also make some sense, even though it's not super amazing when going first, because you don't really have that many minions to begin with. As for on the coin, however, things like Outfit Tailor become a lot more keepable as well. Again, the general early game is very keepable, and for the rest of the stuff, you might have to have a good reason to consider them. For other good Paladin lists out there right now, we have plenty of hand buffs at the top for the last 3 days from Diamond to Legend. Flood Paladin is still out there. Here we are, 58% win rate, 3,500 games, definitely nothing to scoff at. We have several different iterations of it as well. There's also Highlander Paladin out there, which has been seemingly strong. It's okay, it really doesn't make too much sense to me, honestly. Like, it's just the worst hand buff Pally if you ask me. But if you're planning on having a little bit of a different experience with Pally, Highlander is definitely okay to go with. And yeah, the rest is basically iterations of these three. There's also Big Pally, but as you can see, it's more of a meme than anything else right now, so if you're planning on climbing, best stay away from it in most cases. On the number 2 spot, we actually have Secret Hunter, which has been super powerful for the last few days. It actually was the best performing deck for yesterday. Now the stats are a little bit muddied up, it seems. Yeah, we actually tried this on the last coaching session. You can check out the video with it, as well as a detailed guide to go with it too. So really, I'm literally gonna be repeating myself word for word if I have to give you a guide again, like I did for the Pally right now. So really just check out the latest detailed guide with this one, and you're gonna hear everything you need to know about the deck. The main difference here is we're no longer running the 4 mana +3/+3 camouflage mount. That did definitely seem to be an amazing card to include in the deck, but didn't really feel the need for it in the games at least we had. We're also running a more streamlined secret package, none of that explosive and whatnot, no freezing, because you're not seeing pain and flood as much. But yeah, the rest of the deck is pretty much similar stuff. And the Ziliax is going to be the +1/+1 here, as well as the discount instead of the usual double up your attack kind of deal, which was also pretty fun Ziliax to be including in this deck, but this one also works pretty well. Matchup-wise, here's what the stats show. We don't have that much stats here, but it still gives you a good idea. The Highlander Warrior matchup, I gotta say, it definitely did not feel amazing. Not sure how amazing Highlander Priest would also feel, to be completely honest, but mages are usually great for you as well. Mulligan-wise, I'm just gonna quickly show you the going first, going second kind of deal, but if you want to hear my detailed thoughts about it, definitely check the guide. For other good Hunter decks, I almost included Spell Token Hunter back into the top 5. As you can see, it actually has very good stats. I still can't wrap my hand around why the hell is Barracuda Bane in this fucking shit. We do not have a single free drop spell, guys. Like, is really 5 mana draw 2 cards with a crappy free drop body in today's day and age a card you include, a freaking legendary you include in the best performer of the deck? On my account, I would not be including this shit. But the stats don't lie, I guess, and other lies we tell ourselves. This is the best performer. And we also have Highlander Hunter out there doing quite well. This one is going for the Big Beast package and whatnot. It's not really running the secret nonsense, is it? Not really. Yeah, we have several different versions of Hunters out there right now. There is room to be exploring, I guess. But without further ado, let's move down to the number 3 spot, and here we are still having Highlander. We're doing pretty well again. The sample size for this list is actually not super high, but then again, it's a Highlander deck, so how much sample size can we realistically ask for? It's still close to 60% win rate across several different, minimally different lists, so we can definitely consider it to be a top meta deck, to be a force to be reckoned with, basically. And honestly, the deck consists of what we normally used to see back in my day. It's still pretty much the same stuff. We also have a greedy partner included, so you can actually tempo out the Bran a little bit faster, because the +2 mana definitely doesn't feel like a joke right now. You still run the Excavate package. You obviously have tons of armor, tons of removal, tons of card draw, and stitch that together and you have a tier 1 deck. Definitely don't always try to be winning with Deep Miner, Bran, and Boom Boss. That's not your only win condition. Against faster matchups, all you gotta do is just survive long enough, and they usually run out of gas, and you can actually get on the board yourself. This particular list is running the Twin module plus the Perfect module in terms of Ziliax, but you can also be pretty disgusting with the Reborn module instead, which also shaves down the mana, dropping it only to an 8-drop. So that can definitely save you from some sticky situations, and it literally ends the game for a lot of the aggro classes, basically, because they can't really handle it. But yeah, the rest of the deck is pretty standard stuff. I have plenty of guides and gameplay videos with this variant, so you can definitely check those out and see if it's something you want to be working with. Matchup-wise, we really don't have that much stats. I'm gonna drag it out for the last 30 days, see what that does, and it's a lot more populated here. And apparently, obviously, Hunters are still not great, even though Secret Hunter definitely doesn't feel like a bad matchup, at least from the Secret Hunter perspective. It felt like pretty bad for the Hunter, so I'm not really sure if these stats are super accurate there. Zarimi Priest is still going to be a force to be reckoned with, because if they can literally OTK you in a single Zarimi turn around turn 8. Warlocks are still a problem, but they're not as popular nowadays, so all around climbing shouldn't be that big an issue. Mulligan-wise, with decks like this, it's really gonna come down to the class you're playing against. Like, if you're expecting them to be quick, you're gonna be keeping things like removal, like armor gain, a little bit of card draw. If you're expecting them to be slow, it's all about the card draw in those lines. And if you're expecting to be getting dirty ratted, it's a good idea to be holding a big amount of minions in your hand and actually not playing them. Because the only way the slow matchups basically beat you is if they pull out your brand when you don't want it to get pulled. Here's what the stats show when going second as well. Again, same concept. Depending on the matchup, you are going to be looking for different things. For other good warrior decks, the question still begs, what other good warrior decks? There's really not much out there, other than, I guess, Odin Warrior is actually respectable again, it seems. This seems to be like an interesting list that can pretty much OTK people with the help of the pigs. But things like Dummy Warrior are really not amazing. Can't even see a list like that right now. There's nothing but Highlanders and a few Odins here and there. But yeah, here's what the Bomb and Dummy Warriors look like, under 50%, so if you're serious about climbing, these are not the serious deck to be climbing with. On the number 4 spot, we also have Zarimi Priest, still doing pretty well. The nerf to it was really nothing to write home about, like bumping this mana 1 extra. Yeah, I guess it somewhat slows it down, but really nothing amazing. And this variant is actually utilizing Fly Off the Shelves, which definitely sounds like a pretty good card to be running, especially if the meta is a little bit more board-centric. If you're facing a lot of Flood Valleys, Hunters, that kind of nonsense, things like this can definitely make or break that matchup for you. And in order to maneuver, like this is not even a new inclusion anymore. Like Clay Matriarch has been a staple ever since Zarimi became 8 instead of 5, because the Clay Matriarch basically gives you 4 extra dragons thanks to it summoning another 4/4 as well as the mini doing the same. And if you actually copy it with things like Celestial Projectionist, especially the 1-drop, or with Power Chord, it's literally single-handedly getting you the dragon requirements, which is hella nice. The Funnel Cake is extremely important, how you utilize it in this matchup. Also, the Crimson Clergy is an excellent draw engine for you, especially if it manages to stick, and a lot of the times it actually does. And yeah, again, you might want to check out a detailed guide of mine if you really want to get into this deck. Matchup-wise, not that much stats for the last 3 days. For the last 30, we can see that the problematic matchups used to be Flood Valley and Pain Warlock, and with those a lot less populated, it should be even easier for you to be climbing. And the rest is looking pretty decent. Shopper Demon Hunter isn't that great, but it's also not that popular either, so still you should be climbing with ease. And from the popular matchups, you are having a pretty good time indeed. Mulligan-wise, it's a deck where you really are going to have to make the most out of what you're working with. So it really comes down to what your hand is consisting of. Like, if you already have something like Crimson Clergy, you can also keep the Funnel Cake. Whelp Wrangler is usually great. Scale Replica is not bad, but it's usually not the best thing for you to be doing on turn 2. Ship's Chirurgeon ain't bad. Miracle Salesman is good. Power Chord can be a consideration, especially if you have something like Crimson Clergy. Dreamboat can be a keep if you have the Clergy. Like, the win rate here looks very weird. More like the kept rate might be a better representation of what you should be looking for. And yeah, this thing looks a bit more keepable. So you should probably be going for things like this. As for on the coin, again, according to the kept rate, the situation looks pretty similar. Mulligan-wise, here's what it looks like as well, according to the mulligan win rate, that is. And it's kind of the same stuff as well. The Ziliax in this one is the cost 1 less, as well as +1/+1. You can drop it extremely quickly, and it can really be too much to handle for a lot of classes. We also have Hearthstone Brew in here, which basically gives you a second shot at winning the game somehow. Like if the Zarimi plan didn't pan out or you just ran out of cards, it's a pretty good way for you to actually to get yourself a lot of extra gas and take it from there. For other good priest decks, Highlander Priest is also out there. As far as I recall, I've actually seen a lot more of Highlander Priests out there than Zarimis. I guess people are really itching to play that bullshit, and it's actually doing quite well. This is top tier 2 territory right there, 22,000 games, 56% win rate. It is quite the power to be reckoned with indeed. It's annoying as ever, it's slow, and it feels miserable to be losing against, but it is back indeed with a vengeance. And lastly, we still have Insanity Warlock, which seems to be the best performer for the class right now. Close to Pain Warlock still. Honestly, I've tried Pain Warlock and Insanity Warlock. Both felt amazing, but according to the stats, Insanity is a little bit over it. And this is the best performing list right now. Pretty standard stuff. We have a single Furnace Fuel in here, and we also have a couple of domino effects. Defile used to be an amazing card in here as well, but Domino Effect seems to be a little bit more versatile in most cases, like people are used to playing around Defile, not so much against Domino Effect, so that can help out. The Defile definitely was better against Death Rattle boards and things like the 1/1 Death Rattle Ghoul Silverhand recruits that Death Knights and Flood Pallies have, but Domino is generally just more useful in most cases. It's a bit more expensive, but it's basically anyone's guess which one you would prefer here, like either Defile or Domino Effect. The rest of the deck is pretty much same as the old stuff. You have tons of Fatigue stuff. You also have Fizzle in here, and a lot of people have been asking me if Fizzle is a core card in this deck. I would say pretty much. Like against the slower matchups, Fizzle is just a godsend for you. It allows you to get tons of extra damage this way. Like if you manage to copy 2 more Crescendos, that's insane. If you manage to copy 2 more Enroaching Insanities, that can be also great. So really, Fizzle is extremely powerful. And a cool tip here is as soon as you take a Fizzle snapshot, if you're not using Firestone but just Deck Tracker, make sure to make a screenshot of your hand as well so you can actually know what hand you're going to be getting back when the time comes. And don't forget that he is going to give the hand from left to right. So if you don't have room for all of the cards, make sure the cards on the far right don't really matter for you, because you're just not going to get them if your hand is not clean. The rest of the deck is, yeah, as I said, pretty usual suspects here with Symphony at the end, which can also be pretty cool. Matchup-wise, not that much stats for the last 3 days. Same for the last 30. What the fuck, man? I guess we can... Oh, actually Reverb is in this one. That's interesting. Why do we have Reverb in this one? That's a very interesting inclusion indeed. I guess you could use it on your own Popgar and whatnot, but no, that's kind of dumb. Why do we have Reverb in here? Can anybody in the comments enlighten me what the bright idea here is? Like, which matchup do you really want to have a Reverb against? I guess it can help against some can buff Pallies. Stuff like that, you can steal their Tigris plushie and whatnot, but I don't know, feels like a weird inclusion. I don't feel like we have anything amazing of our own to give reverb onto, so I don't know, feels weird. I guess that's why we don't have that much stats on it. Here's the... Wow, the difference of the win rate is insane, by the way. Like the second domino effect instead of reverb, this is like 5% less win rate. But I guess we can check out its matchups because it's a lot more populated. And Secret Hunter, Hand Buff Death Knight, all of the Paladins, and Insanity Mirror Warlock can be tricky. Everything else seems pretty standard stuff. Mulligan-wise, here's what the stats show going first. You usually want your Miracle Salesman. No, these stats are crappy, man. Like, I'm gonna go with the 1 more domino effect instead. Going first, yeah, this looks a lot more like it. Miracle Salesman, Baritone Imp. Enroaching Insanity is an interesting consideration. It definitely amps up the fatigue damage for you a lot quicker, and it helps you get the Crazed Conductor into a lot more respectable state. Crescendo also becomes very respectable too. But it is a little bit slow to be doing this as soon as turn 3. I guess it's not as bad of a keep nowadays, because back in the day we used to run the free drop that was drawing you the shadow spell, and I guess that's why Enroaching was not considered an amazing keep that time of the in the early turns, but nowadays I guess it's actually pretty decent to do early. Popgar could be in consideration depending on the matchup. Fizzle, not really, I'd say. Elemental Geode is pretty good, and the rest you gotta have a good reason to consider. As for when on the coin, the situation is not much different, but here the Thornveil Tentacle becomes a lot better, and Enroaching apparently becomes a lot worse. The rest kinda is the same. For other good Warlock decks, we can see that also Pain Warlock is still pretty high. This is the list I showed you, 58% win rate, 700 games. It's not super populated. There's also a 300 population with Defile and Double Furnace Fuel. No domino effect, kind of weird. It also runs Ziliax, which is also an interesting inclusion with lifesteal and discount. Sludge Warlock apparently is also trying to get back. Low sample size, decent win rate. Snake Warlock I haven't really seen too much of at the high spots. What is this even? This is a very weird Hand Warlock apparently. Doesn't run the wheel, doesn't really run much at anything. It's just a slow control-ish Warlock type. Kinda interesting. And about the snake, where the hell is the snake? I guess here's the snake, less than 52% win rate, so far from amazing. So that's it for the 5 best decks. Moving on to the classes we haven't mentioned, starting off with Death Knight, we have quite a few different iterations of it. The biggest sample size ones would be, I guess, Plague Death Knight. Here's the above 500 games for the last 3 days, not that bad of stats. We also have Rainbow Deck with above 1000, almost 55 win rate. Hand Buff is doing respectably well. I did try the deck in lower ranks. Didn't really feel that amazing, but it's definitely something to fool around with if you're into that shit. Highlander is also playable apparently, and that's kind of about it. The rest are not doing that amazing, and the sample size is not that big either. With Demon Hunter, Shopper Demon Hunter is actually doing pretty well right now. Not very big sample size, however. There's also variants with Blind Eye Sharpshooter creeping up back into the meta, maybe. Aggro Demon Hunter is something to consider. This is basically Shopper, but with a bit more damage, and Nagas, I guess, again, with the Blind Eye and whatnot. So yeah, Shopper is still the proven archetype to go for with Demon Hunter. Druids have a lot of different iterations as well. Seems like the Highlander is the most populated one. Dragon Druid is also respectable. This one is running Aviana. Hybrid Druid is interesting. Low sample size, but pretty crazy win rate, so maybe if you're really good with the deck, you will be getting great results. Here's a more populated hybrid variant. Not as amazing, but still 55 with 2000 definitely is decent. I've also heard about people talking about the Boomkin Druid. It's really not as amazing. I don't know if it's a skill issue or just the deck is crap. I haven't really tried it myself and I haven't faced it, so I don't know about that. Treant Druid is out there as well. Low sample size, low win rate, but very cheap, so I guess it has that going for it. Moving next for Mage, and Spell Mage seems to be the best performer here. Rainbow Mage is apparently playable again. This one is using Khadgar and whatnot. A lot of the weird frosty action going as well. Elemental Mage is surprisingly also playable, 53% win rate, and is basically a free deck. So that's also interesting. But that's about it, basically, for Mage. Here's a Highlander list. Pretty crap, if you ask me. And haven't even seen much in terms of the Excavate lately, so there's that too. Yeah, here's a mining list. It looks pretty weird, pretty janky. With Rogue, right now Miracle Rogue and Digging Rogue seem to be the best bets. Like, people in top 1000 Legend have been doing a lot of Rogue shenanigans. Maybe it's a very high skill cap deck right now, and you can definitely be doing a lot of crazy things with it, but it's a really peculiar playstyle. I'm not a huge fan of the play patterns Rogues have right now, but it's definitely something to consider apparently. And lastly, we have Shaman, and here Shaman is gonna go for Highlander basically. The rest is just not out there just yet. Maybe we're gonna see some working nature Shaman, but so far that doesn't seem to be the case. So that's gonna be it for this top 5, guys. Hope this helps you figure out what you want to be playing so you can hit your next desired rank. If you're serious about Hearthstone and like what I'm doing, drop a like and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget you can hire me for some Hearthstone coaching. Thanks for watching, I'm Kris05, and I'll see you in my next video or stream.